The morning began in peace. A faint mist hung low over the fields of northern Vermont, where dawn usually came slow and gentle. Birds called from the maples, the sun crawled up behind the hills, and the farm of Michael Lee stirred awake. Chickens clucked lazily in the yard, their feathers glowing orange under the first light. Among them strutted Cliff, a proud red rooster with a voice loud enough to wake the valley. He wasn't just a rooster. He was the farm's alarm clock, guardian, and sometimes troublemaker. Every morning he climbed the fence post and crowed like he owned the world. But that morning, something else stirred in the woods. From deep within the trees, silent and unseen, a pair of amber eyes watched the yard. A wild lynx, large, lean, and starving after a hard winter. Hunger had driven it closer to the farms lately, slipping through shadows at dawn and dusk. Today, its gaze fixed on the flock. The sun rose higher. Michael stepped onto the porch with his coffee, watching the chickens scatter around the yard. Ranger, the old farm dog, dozed near the barn door, too old now to chase much of anything. Everything looked calm. Then the forest went silent. Even the birds stopped singing. Michael frowned. Years on the land had taught him to trust that silence. It always meant something was wrong. He set his mug down slowly. "Ranger?" Before the dog could react, a blur shot out from the tree line. The lynx. It hit the yard in a flash of fur and claws. Chickens screamed and scattered in every direction, feathers flying. In the chaos, Cliff stood his ground, wings spread, spurs flashing. He crowed, not in fear, but in challenge. The lynx lunged. Cliff struck back. The clash was short but violent, feathers and fur exploding in a whirl of movement. Cliff pecked and kicked, slashing at the predator's face. The lynx snarled, swiping with a paw that could break bone. One blow sent the rooster tumbling across the dirt. He scrambled up, wings beating wildly, refusing to run. Ranger barked, limping forward, but the distance was too great. The lynx turned toward the fallen rooster, ready to strike again. Michael's heart stopped. "No!" He sprinted for the barn, grabbing the nearest thing he could find, an iron shovel, and ran toward the yard, shouting, "Hey, get away!" The lynx hissed, muscles tensing, eyes blazing. It stepped back from the rooster but didn't flee. It was too hungry. It wanted the kill. Then, from behind Michael, came the rumble of an engine. The county rescue truck, already patrolling after reports of a lynx sighting nearby, had turned down his drive at the perfect moment. Two officers jumped out, Emma Hart and Daniel Cross, members of Vermont Wildlife Rescue. Both moved fast, their rifles loaded not with bullets but tranquilizer darts. "Eyes on the cat!" Daniel shouted. Emma aimed. The lynx turned, growling, ears flat. The shot rang out, thunk, a dart buried in its flank. The lynx leapt, snarling, bounding toward the woods. Within seconds, it vanished into the trees, leaving behind only the storm of feathers and blood-stained snow. Michael dropped to his knees beside Cliff. Oh God! The rooster lay on his side, chest heaving, feathers torn, one wing limp. Blood stained the ground where claws had raked across him. Yet, unbelievably, he was alive. "He's breathing," Michael called. Emma knelt beside him, her gloved hands gentle. "We've got him," she said softly. "Hang on, little guy." Ranger limped closer, whining, sniffing the rooster's head. Cliff blinked weakly, giving a faint, raspy cluck, as if still trying to crow even now. The rescue team moved quickly. Daniel brought a small crate lined with towels from the truck. Emma cleaned the wounds with saline and antiseptic, murmuring softly the way she did with frightened animals. Michael hovered, hands shaking. "He fought it," Daniel said quietly, examining the claw marks. "Look at this. He actually hit the lynx's face. There's blood on his beak." Michael's eyes widened. "He stood up to that thing?" "Looks like it," Emma replied with a faint smile. "Tough little rooster." Ranger barked softly, tail wagging once. They loaded Cliff into the crate and lifted him carefully into the rescue truck. Michael climbed in after them. "I'm coming too," he said firmly. The drive to the wildlife center took nearly an hour. Snow still drifted lazily across the hills as they sped along the rural road. Inside the crate, Cliff breathed shallowly, his eyes half closed. Michael sat beside him, whispering, "You hang in there, old boy. You're the bravest thing I've ever seen." Emma checked his vitals. "He's got shock and some blood loss," she said, "but he's strong. We'll keep him warm, get fluids in, and stitch that wing." Daniel nodded, driving faster. If he made it through a lynx attack, he's not giving up now. At the rescue center, warmth and light replaced the cold chaos of the farm. The smell of disinfectant and hay filled the air. They laid Cliff on a padded table, feathers still wet with melted snow. Under the steady hands of Emma and the attending vet, the rooster was cleaned, stitched, and bandaged. Hours passed. Michael waited outside, pacing. Ranger lay at his feet, eyes never leaving the clinic door. Finally, Emma stepped out, smiling tiredly. He made it. Michael let out a long, shaky breath. "He's gonna be all right?" She nodded. "He's tough. You should have seen him wake up after surgery. Started trying to crow with half a lungful of air." Michael laughed, wiping his eyes. "That's him. Never shuts up." News of the fight spread quickly through the small valley. "Rooster saves his flock from lynx attack," the headlines read. Reporters came, asking for photos. Michael wasn't sure what to say. He just kept repeating, "He's the one who did it, not me." At the wildlife center, Cliff became something of a legend. Kids visiting on field trips pointed at his enclosure where he strutted proudly again, feathers regrown, chest puffed out. A sign outside read, "Cliff, the rooster who fought a lynx." Emma smiled every time she walked by. She told Michael one afternoon, "I've treated bears, eagles, and coyotes, but I've never met anyone with his spirit." Michael chuckled. "He's got more courage than half the people I know." Spring came early that year. The snow melted into rivers that carved bright paths through the fields. Grass grew again, the air sweet with rain. On the morning of Cliff's release, the sky was a clear, endless blue. Michael stood at the farm gate, watching as Emma opened the carrier door. "Ready to go home, hero?" she asked. Cliff blinked once, then stepped out slowly. The yard looked different now, greener, softer, but his flock was waiting. The hens clucked excitedly as he strutted forward, his gait confident despite the faint scar along his wing. Ranger barked once, as if in greeting. Michael laughed, voice thick. Back where you belong. Cliff crowed. Loud, defiant, glorious. The sound echoed across the valley, rising into the sky like a declaration of victory. Later that day, Emma and Daniel stayed for coffee before heading back. They stood by the fence, watching Cliff parade among the hens like a returning king. "You know," Daniel said, "we found the lynx tracks. It wandered deep into the national forest after the tranquilizer wore off. Shouldn't be back this far again." Michael nodded slowly. Maybe it learned its lesson. Emma smiled. And maybe so did we. That courage doesn't always come with claws or teeth. Ranger barked softly in agreement. As they drove away, the farm returned to its rhythm, the creak of the windmill, the hum of bees, and, of course, Cliff's crow, proud and alive. That night, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Michael leaned on the porch rail, coffee in hand. The yard glowed gold in the fading light. Cliff perched on his favorite post, silhouetted against the sky. For a long moment, man and Rooster simply watched the world settle into peace again. Michael smiled faintly. "You did good, little warrior," he murmured. "You kept the light in this place." Cliff crowed one last time, strong and clear, as the first stars began to shine. And that's the story of Cliff, the brave rooster who faced a wild lynx and lived to crow again. A creature so small, yet with a heart that refused to back down. When danger came, he didn't run. He stood his ground, proving that courage isn't measured by size, but by spirit. If this story moved you, leave a comment, share it, and subscribe for more. Till next time, remember, sometimes heroes have feathers, not fur.